Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So in our previous class, there was a beautiful description of Rukmini, how she is the original goddess of fortune. And of course we know from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya that Rukmini is the expansion of Chandravali in Goloka, and Chandravali is Krishna, Radharani's chief competitor. So Chandravali is the head of the right-wing gopis, and Srimati Radharani is the leader of the left-wing gopis. But Chandravali and all the other gopis are expansions of Srimati Radharani. So after we heard the description of Rukmini, it was explained by Shukadeva Goswami and of course Prabhupada that Krishna likes to irritate his wives. And the reason Krishna specifically irritates his wives is that he wants to see them manifest the anger of love. So Krishna would do things to irritate his wives, and most of his wives, if not all of his wives, would then retaliate against Krishna, become angry with him, and Krishna would enjoy that. But Rukmini was explained that she was so submissive, so dedicated to Krishna, that she never would become agitated or irritated. So we heard in last week's class, or the previous week's class, how Krishna was saying so many derogatory things about himself. Krishna was denigrating himself. Krishna was doing this simply to see if Rukmini would finally become irritated with him and chastise him. So we're not finished. We're still hearing Krishna teasing Rukmini. So let's pick up where we left off. In this way, Krishna was proposing that Rukmini divorce him at a time when Rukmini already had many grown-up children. Therefore, Krishna's whole proposition appeared to be something unexpected, because according to the Vedic culture, there was no such thing as separation of husband and wife by divorce. And nor was it possible for Rukmini to choose a new husband at her advanced age when she already had many sons. So to Rukmini, every one of Krishna's proposals appeared crazy, and Rukmini was surprised that Krishna could say such things. Simple as she was, Rukmini's anxiety was increasing more and more, and it was increasing at the thought of separation from Krishna. Then Krishna went further. My dear princess, after all, you must prepare yourself for your next life. I therefore advise that you select someone who can actually help you in both this life and the next, for I myself am completely unable to help. My dear beautiful Rukmini, you know that all the members of the princely order, including Shishupal, Shalva, Jarasandha, Dantavakra, and even your elder brother Rukmi, they are all my enemies. They do not like me at all. They all hate me from the cores of their hearts. All these princes were very much puffed up with their worldly possessions, and they did not care a fig for anyone who came before them. In order to teach them some lessons, I agreed to kidnap you according to your desire. Otherwise, I actually have no love for you, although you loved me even before the marriage. As I have already explained, I am not very much interested in family life or love between husband and wife. By nature, I am not very fond of family life, and I'm also not fond of wife, children, home, and opulences. As my devotees are always neglectful of all these worldly possessions, I am also like that. Actually, I am interested in self-realization. That gives me pleasure, not this family life. So as you can see, Krishna's denigrating himself has continued. And this last section has shown to be very, very devastating. So, this next episode is called Rukmini Faints, which is why I selected the painting from Krishna book that you see behind me. Rukmini Faints. After submitting his statements, Lord Krishna suddenly stopped. The great authority, Shukadeva Goswami, remarks that Krishna almost always passed his time with Rukmini, and Rukmini was a bit proud to be so fortunate that Krishna never left her for even a moment. However, Krishna does not like to see any of his devotees to be proud, for as soon as a devotee becomes proud, by some tactic, Krishna cuts down that pride. So we saw that previously in Vrindavan, the night of the Rasa dance. If you recall, when the Rasa dance started, Krishna was between every two gopis, and they were dancing cheek to cheek. But Krishna detected at that time that the gopis were feeling themselves very, very proud to be the most fortunate women in the universe because they were dancing with Krishna. So when Krishna saw that the gopis had become a little proud of their position, Krishna immediately left the Rasa dance and he went deeper into the forest to be alone with Srimati Radharani. But we also heard that after some time, when Radha and Krishna were deep in the forest, Radha told Krishna, "Oh, I cannot go any further. So if you want to continue, you will have to carry me." So Krishna now could detect that even Radharani was becoming proud. So Krishna said, "Yes, just get on my shoulder." And as soon as Radharani attempted to get on Krishna's shoulder, Krishna disappeared even from Radharani. So this tactic of Krishna, that he does not want his devotees to become proud, is universal. It applies to Radharani, it applies to insignificant devotees like me. By some tactic, Krishna cuts down the pride of his devotee. Now, in this case also, Krishna said many things which were hard for Rukmini to hear. Rukmini could only conclude that although she was proud of her position, Krishna could be separated from her at any moment. Rukmini was conscious that her husband was not an ordinary human being. No. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara. He is the master of the three worlds. And by the way Krishna was speaking, Rukmini was afraid of being separated from Krishna, for Rukmini had never heard such harsh words from Krishna before. Thus, Rukmini became perplexed with the thought and fear of separation, and her heart began to palpitate. Without replying to a word of Krishna's statement, Rukmini simply cried in great anxiety, as if drowning in an ocean of grief. Rukmini silently scratched the ground with the nails of her toes, which reflected reddish light on the ground. The tears from Rukmini's eyes mixed with the black cosmetic ointment from her eyelids, and they dropped down, washing the kumkum and saffron from her breasts. Choked up on account of great anxiety and unable to speak even a word, Rukmini kept her head downward and remained standing just like a stick. But due to extremely painful fear and lamentation, Rukmini then lost all of her powers of reason, and she became weak, her body losing so much weight that the bangles on her wrist became slackened. The chamara fan with which Rukmini was serving Krishna immediately fell from her hand. Rukmini's brain and memory became puzzled, and Rukmini lost consciousness. The nicely combed hair on Rukmini's head scattered here and there, and Rukmini fell down straight, just like a banana tree cut down by a whirlwind. Lord Krishna could immediately realize that Rukmini had not taken his words in the joking spirit that he had intended. Instead, Rukmini had taken Krishna's words very seriously, and in her extreme anxiety over immediate separation from Krishna, Rukmini had fallen into this condition. Lord Sri Krishna is naturally very affectionate toward his devotees. So when Krishna saw Rukmini's condition, Krishna's heart immediately softened. At once, Krishna became merciful to Rukmini. The relationship between Rukmini and Krishna is just like that as between Lakshmi and Narayan. Therefore, Krishna appeared before Rukmini not in his two-handed form, but now in his four-handed manifestation as Narayana. Krishna got down from the bedstead, brought Rukmini up by her hands, and placing his cooling hands on Rukmini's face, smoothed the scattered hair on her head. Lord Krishna dried the wet breasts of Rukminiji with his own hand. And understanding the seriousness of Rukmini's love for him, Krishna then embraced Rukmini to his chest. The Supreme Personality, Krishna, is most expert in putting a thing reasonably for one's understanding. Thus, Krishna tried to retract all that he had said before. Krishna is the only resort for all devotees. And so Krishna knows very well how to satisfy his pure devotees. Krishna could understand that Rukmini could not follow the statements he had made in a joking way. And so, to counteract her confusion, Krishna again spoke as follows. My dear daughter of King Vidarbha, my dear Rukmini, please do not misunderstand me. Don't be unkind to me like this. I know that you are sincerely and seriously attached to me. You are my eternal companion. The words which have affected you so much are not factual. I only wanted to irritate you just a little bit, and I was expecting you to make counter answers to those joking words. Unfortunately, you have taken them seriously, and I am very, very sorry about this. I expected that your reddish lips would tremble in anger when you heard my statements, and that you would chastise me in so many words. Oh, perfection of love! I never expected that your condition would be like this. I expected that you would cast your unblinking glance upon me in retaliation, and that I would thus be able to see your beautiful face in that angry mood. My dear beautiful wife, you know that because we are householders, we are always busy in many household affairs, and so we long for a time when we can enjoy some joking words between us. That is our ultimate gain in householder life. Prabhupada now comments. Actually, householders work very hard day and night, but all the fatigue of the day's labor is minimized as soon as they meet husband and wife together, and they enjoy life in many ways. So Lord Krishna wanted to exhibit himself as being like an ordinary householder who delights himself by exchanging joking words with his wife. Krishna therefore repeatedly requested Rukmini not to take his words very seriously. So let's go on now to the next section. This is entitled Rukmini Responds to Krishna. So, in this way, when Lord Krishna pacified Rukmini by his sweet words, Rukmini could understand that what Krishna had formerly said was not actually meant, but was spoken to evoke some joking pleasure between themselves. Rukmini was therefore pacified by hearing the words of Krishna. Gradually, Rukmini was freed from all fear of separation from Krishna, and Rukmini began to look on Krishna's face very cheerfully with her naturally smiling face. Then Rukmini responded, "O my dear lotus-eyed Lord Krishna, your statement that we are not a fit combination is completely right. It is not possible for me to come to an equal level with you, for you are the reservoir of all qualities. You are the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead. how can I be a fit match for you? Indeed, there is no possibility of comparison with you, for you are the master of all greatness. You are the controller of the three material qualities, and you are the object of worship for great demigods like Brahma and Shiva. Now, as far as I am concerned, I am a product of the three modes of material nature, which impede the progressive advancement of devotional service. So, when and where can I be a fit match for you? My dear husband, you have rightly said that out of fear of the kings, you have taken shelter in the water of the sea. But who are the kings of this material world? I do not think that the so-called royal families are actually kings of the material world. No. The kings of the material world are actually the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The gunas, they are actually the controllers. At the same time, Krishna, you are situated in the core of everyone's heart, where you remain completely aloof from the touch of the three modes of material nature, and there is no doubt about it. You said that you always maintain enmity with the worldly kings. But who are those worldly kings? I think the worldly kings are the various senses. The senses are most formidable, and they control everyone. So certainly you maintain enmity with these material senses, for you are never under the control of the material senses. Rather, you are the controller of everyone's senses. Therefore, your name is Hrishikesha. My dear Lord, you said that you are bereft of all royal power, and that is also correct. For not only are you bereft of supremacy over the material world, but even your devoted servants, those who have some attachment to your lotus feet, also give up supremacy over this material world, because the devotees consider the material position to be the darkest region. And this checks the progress of spiritual enlightenment. Your servants do not like material supremacy, so what to speak of you? My dear Lord, your statement that you do not act as an ordinary person with a particular aim in life is also perfectly correct. Even your great devotees and servants, who are known as great sages and saintly persons, remain in such a state that no one can get any clue as to the aim of their lives. Human society considers them crazy and cynical. Their aim of life remains a mystery to the common human being. The lowest of mankind can know neither you nor your servant. A contaminated human being cannot even imagine the pastimes of you and your devotees. O Ananta, O Unlimited One, when the activities and endeavors of your devotees remain a mystery to the common human beings, how then can your motives and endeavors be understood by the ordinary common human being? all kinds of energies and opulences are engaged in your service, but still they rest at the shelter of your lotus feet. My dear husband, you have described yourself as penniless, but this condition is not poverty, since there is nothing in existence but you only. So you do not need to possess anything. You yourself are everything. Unlike all others, you do not require to purchase anything extraneously. Within you, all contrary things can be adjusted because you are the Absolute. You do not possess anything, but no one is richer than you. In the material world, no one can be rich without possessing something. But since your lordship is absolute, you can adjust the contradiction of possessing nothing and at the same time being the richest person. In the Vedas, it is stated that although you have no material hands and legs, still you accept everything offered in devotion by the devotees. You have no material eyes and ears, but still you can see and hear everything everywhere. Although you do not possess anything, the great demigods who accept prayers and worship from others come and worship you in order to solicit your mercy. So how then can you be categorized among the poor? So this point here about how Krishna has no material hands and legs, but you accept everything offered in devotion by the devotees. This means that although Krishna has no material hands and legs, Krishna has transcendental hands and legs. He has no material senses, but he has spiritual transcendental senses. So this is the real meaning of the word nirguna. We studied this when we spent a lot of time on chapter 14 of this Krishna book. After Lord Brahma stole the cowherder boys and calves, and then Krishna for 1 year manifested the exact duplicates of all the cowherd boys and calves down to the minutest detail. And when Brahma realized that he had offended Krishna, how Brahma had become audacious trying to test Krishna, we studied that chapter, very long chapter, where Brahma offers prayers to small little Krishna, and those prayers were highly philosophical. So in that chapter, we heard about the real explanation of the word nirguna. Now the Sanskrit word nirguna means either rope, or it means quality, or it means modes of material nature, because there are 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So when the absolute truth is defined as nirguna, it means, first of all, he has no material qualities. He is not affected by any of the modes of nature. And as we learned, when Yashoda tried to bind Krishna in the Damodar Leela, even the ropes, guna, could not tie up Krishna. Remember, no matter how many ropes Yashoda brought, The knot was always 2 fingers or 2 inches too short, even though she got all the rope in the house. So Nirguna means Krishna has no material qualities. Nothing material can bind him. And he is above the modes of nature. But that doesn't mean that Krishna is quality-less or formless. No. It means he has spiritual qualities, and the only way to capture Krishna or tie up Krishna, as we learned from Damodar Leela, is by your bhakti, by your love. Because if you recall, when Yashoda became flustered and flabbergasted after trying to tie up Krishna, then Krishna allowed himself to be tied up by the ropes. But it was explained in both the Damodarashtaka prayers and also by Shukadeva Goswami that the only thing that can tie up Krishna is your bhakti and love. Rukmini continues to respond to Krishna. My dear Lord, you have also stated that the richest section of human society prefers not to worship you. And this is also correct because persons who are puffed up with material possessions, they think of utilizing their property for sense gratification. When a poverty-stricken man becomes rich, he then makes a program for sense gratification due to his ignorance of how to utilize his hard-earned wealth. Under the spell of the external energy, he thinks that his money is properly employed in sense gratification, and thus he neglects to render transcendental service to you. So in this connection, there are many examples here in America, several examples of people. We have this thing in America called the lottery. And sometimes the person who wins the lottery will win millions and millions and millions of dollars. But there are many instances of such people who, once they got the millions of dollars, within a few years, they're again broke. Why? Prabhupada explained it here. They think, the karmi thinks, the non-devotee thinks, that this money, any money, is simply meant for my sense gratification. But that's not the reality. Yes, we are entitled to an allowance. We are entitled to use our wealth in order to maintain body and soul together, to nicely take care of our family. But at the same time, one should know that any wealth is a gift from God, and a portion of that should be used in the service of the Lord. So if one thinks I'm working hard and I'm making all this money and it's for my sense gratification, that is sinful. No. You are allowed a portion, an allowance, but one must recognize that it's a gift from God and should be used for God's service. So we'll continue with Rukmini's reply because there's more here, but we'll continue next week. Right now, we will sing the prayers to Lord Nrsingadev.